They say revenge is a dish best served cold. I never understood that phrase until I stood in the hallway of Winter Haven Rehabilitation Center, watching my mother shiver beneath her regulation-thin blanket, begging the nurse for something warmer. "I'm so sorry, Mrs. Richmond," the nurse said, her voice professionally sympathetic. "The heating system in the north wing is being repaired. We're doing everything we can." My mother's eyes found mine across the room. For just a moment, her mask of helpless elderly woman slipped, and I saw recognition. She knew exactly what I'd done. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to where this all began. To a small town in upstate New York, to a house on Maple Avenue, to a childhood that looked perfect from the outside but was frozen solid within. My name is Sarah Richmond, and I'm 32 years old now. A licensed clinical social worker specializing in geriatric care placement in Buffalo, New York. But back when this story really starts, I was just a scared 8-year-old girl trying to understand why her mother hated her. It wasn't always obvious. My mother, Victoria Richmond, is a master of appearances. To the outside world, she was the perfect mother. PTA president, volunteer coordinator at St. Mary's Church, the woman who always brought homemade cookies to neighborhood gatherings. She had this laugh, this tinkling musical laugh, that made everyone around her smile. But at home, behind closed doors, Victoria had different rules for different children. There were 3 of us: my older brother Marcus, me, and my younger sister Lily. Marcus was Victoria's firstborn, her golden child. He could do no wrong. Lily was the baby, delicate and beautiful, the daughter Victoria had always dreamed of. Blonde, blue-eyed, graceful. She needed protection, coddling, endless attention. And then there was me. Brown hair, brown eyes, sturdy build. The middle child who, according to Victoria, needed to be toughened up. "You're too soft, Sarah," she'd tell me, her voice dripping with disdain. "Life will eat you alive if you don't learn to be strong. I'm doing this for your own good." The first time it happened, I was 7 years old. It was my birthday, October 15th, 2000. I remember because I'd been so excited about turning 7, about the party Victoria had promised. But that afternoon, I'd spilled grape juice on the new white carpet in the living room. An accident. A simple, childish accident. Victoria's face had transformed. That smile disappeared, replaced by something cold and calculating. "You need to learn responsibility," she said calmly. Too calmly. "Tonight, you'll sleep on the porch. Maybe some time in the cold will teach you to be more careful." I thought she was joking. I laughed nervously. But when bedtime came, she was serious. "Please, Mom," I begged, already in my pajamas. Thin cotton ones, nothing warm. "I'm sorry about the carpet. I'll clean it. I'll do anything." "You'll do as you're told." Her voice was steel wrapped in silk. "The porch is enclosed. You'll be fine. Consider it a character-building exercise." Our enclosed porch wasn't actually enclosed. Not really. It had screens, not glass. It was October in upstate New York. The temperature was already dropping into the low 40s at night. Marcus was at basketball practice. He didn't see. Lily was already asleep in her room, her warm, heated, princess-themed room with the space heater Victoria had installed because her little angel caught cold so easily. I spent that night curled on the wicker porch furniture, wrapped in my thin pajamas, shaking so hard my teeth chattered. I could see through the screen into our living room, could watch Victoria sit on the couch drinking tea, warm and comfortable, occasionally glancing out at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. When I knocked on the door around midnight, desperate and freezing, she opened it just long enough to shake her head. "You haven't learned your lesson yet," she said. Then she closed the door and turned off the porch light. I learned 2 things that night: how to stay very, very quiet when you're suffering, and that my mother's cruelty had a system to it. She always had justification. She never left marks. And she was very, very good at making it seem like it was all for my benefit. That first night became a pattern. Any infraction, real or imagined, resulted in porch time. Forgot to make my bed? Porch. Got a B on a test? Porch. Talked back? Porch. Breathed wrong? Porch. The worst part wasn't even the cold. Though that was terrible. It was the gaslighting. Victoria would tell anyone who asked that I preferred sleeping outside. Sarah's going through this phase. She'd tell neighbors, teachers, anyone who noticed my exhausted face. She insists on sleeping on the porch, says it's more comfortable. You know how children are with their wild imaginations. And people believed her. Why wouldn't they? Victoria Richmond was a pillar of the community. I was just a strange child with odd preferences. My brother Marcus worked nights at Buffalo General Hospital by the time I was 10. He'd gotten a position as a nursing assistant while putting himself through college. He wanted to be a doctor, to help people. He was good and kind and believed the best of everyone, including Victoria. I tried to tell him once. I was 11, and it had been a particularly brutal winter. I had frostbite on 2 toes, documented by the school nurse, who'd sent a concerned note home. Victoria had laughed it off. She refuses to wear proper shoes, she told the school. I buy her boots, and she leaves them at friends' houses. What can I do? Over breakfast one Saturday morning, Marcus home from a night shift, I said casually, "It's really cold out on that porch at night." Marcus looked up from his eggs. Victoria froze, her coffee cup halfway to her lips. "What porch?" Marcus asked. "Oh, Sarah and her imagination," Victoria laughed, that musical, dismissive laugh. "We were talking yesterday about how she used to play on the porch as a child. She's feeling nostalgic." I opened my mouth to clarify, to tell him the truth. But Victoria's eyes met mine across the table. There was a warning there, a promise. If I told, it would get worse. "Yeah," I said quietly. "Just being nostalgic." Marcus ruffled my hair affectionately. "You're a weird kid, sis, but I love you." The moment passed. The truth stayed buried. The only person who seemed to suspect was Mrs. Chen, our next-door neighbor. Mrs. Chen was a tiny woman from Taiwan, maybe 70 years old, who had lived next door for as long as I could remember. She had this way of knowing things without being told. In the winter when I was 12, I noticed that sometimes, late at night, when Victoria thought I was asleep on the porch, Mrs. Chen's basement window would be slightly open. Not obviously open, just cracked enough that a small girl could squeeze through. I started sneaking over, just for 10, maybe 15 minutes. I'd slip through that window, sit by her old radiator, let the warmth seep back into my frozen bones, then slip back before anyone noticed. Mrs. Chen never spoke to me during these visits. She'd just sit in her chair, knitting or reading, pretending not to notice the shivering girl by her radiator. Sometimes she'd leave a mug of hot chocolate on the small table next to the radiator. She never acknowledged it. I never thanked her. It was our silent pact. Until Victoria found out. I was 13. It was January, one of those brutal western New York winters where the temperature doesn't rise above 10 degrees for weeks. I had just slipped through Mrs. Chen's window when I heard Victoria's voice outside. "I know she's in there," Victoria was saying, her voice carrying through the thin basement walls. "My daughter. She's been sneaking into your home without permission." Mrs. Chen's voice was calm. "I haven't seen anyone." "Don't lie to me." Victoria's voice turned sharp. "You've been undermining my parenting, encouraging her disobedience. I could call the police." "Your daughter is cold," Mrs. Chen said simply. "My daughter is learning resilience, something your generation understood but seems to have forgotten. Children need to be toughened up, not coddled." There was a long pause. "In Taiwan, we had a saying," Mrs. Chen finally said. "A tree that bends in the storm survives. A tree that refuses to bend breaks. You are trying to make stone out of a child. Stone doesn't bend, it breaks. My parenting choices are none of your business. And my basement window is none of yours." I heard footsteps. Victoria's heels clicking away angrily on the frozen sidewalk. I stayed perfectly still by the radiator, tears streaming down my face. Not from cold this time, but from the realization that someone, somewhere, saw what was happening. Someone understood. But Mrs. Chen never left her window open again. She couldn't. Victoria watched too closely. The years blurred together. 8th grade, freshman year, sophomore year, each winter worse than the last. I developed permanent circulation problems. Raynaud's syndrome, the doctor called it. My fingers and toes would turn white in the cold, then blue, Then painful red as blood flow returned. I had scars on 3 toes from severe frostbite. How did this happen? The doctor asked during one checkup. My junior year of high school. Victoria smiled sadly. Sarah is very resistant to wearing proper winter clothing. I've tried everything. You know how teenagers are. The doctor believed her. They all believed her. I learned to survive. I learned to layer my clothes, to keep moving on those frozen nights, to distract my mind from the physical discomfort. I learned that suffering in silence was easier than fighting. I learned that some battles aren't worth fighting when you know you'll lose, but I also learned something else. I learned about systems, about how institutions work, about how people in power can manipulate regulations to create suffering while maintaining perfect legal deniability. Victoria taught me well. She just didn't realize she was creating her own worst enemy. The turning point came during my senior year. My best friend Rachel invited me on a ski trip to Vermont with her family. 3 days at a lodge, real heating, actual warmth, a chance to just be a normal 17-year-old for once. I asked permission. It was December, a week before winter break. Victoria looked at me with that cold, assessing gaze. A ski trip? How nice! And when were you planning to finish your college applications? They're all done. I just need to... Your character still needs work, she interrupted smoothly. I think staying home would be more beneficial. Family time, building strength. You understand. Rachel's family invited me. They're expecting me. Then I'll call and explain that you have responsibilities here. I'm sure they'll understand that family comes first. Something in me snapped. Maybe it was being 17. Maybe it was the thought of Rachel and her family, warm and laughing by a fireplace while I froze on the porch. Maybe it was just that I'd finally had enough. No, I said. Victoria's eyebrows rose. Excuse me. I said no, I'm going on the trip. Her face transformed. For the first time, I saw real emotion there, anger, unfiltered and raw. You'll do as you're told in my house. Or what? You'll make me sleep outside? You already do that. It's for your own good. It's abuse. I said the word out loud for the first time. What you do is abuse. Victoria laughed. That musical, dismissive laugh. Abuse? You have a roof over your head, food, clothes, education. You're being dramatic. I'm being honest. You're being ungrateful. Her voice dropped to something dangerous. After everything I've done for you, every sacrifice I've made, this is how you repay me? She was good, so good. Within 30 seconds, she'd turned it around, made me the villain, made herself the victim. I went to my room. I didn't go on the ski trip. That night, on the porch, watching my breath freeze in the air, watching Rachel's Instagram stories of the warm lodge and laughing faces, something crystallized inside me. I couldn't fight Victoria. Not now, not yet. But someday, somehow I would. And on that cold December night, a plan began to form. College was my escape. I got into SUNY Buffalo on a full scholarship, which meant I could live in the dorms year-round. For the first time in my life, I had consistent heat. I had warm blankets. I had nights where I didn't wake up shivering. I also had purpose. I declared my major as social work with a focus on gerontology, the study of aging and elder care. Marcus thought it was noble. Following in my footsteps, he said proudly. He was in medical school by then, specializing in emergency medicine. Helping people, just like I taught you. Victoria was suspicious. Social work, with elderly people, seems specific. I want to help vulnerable populations, I said truthfully. Just not in the way she thought. What I didn't tell anyone was that I was specifically studying the systems that govern elder care, the regulations around nursing homes and rehabilitation facilities, the legal requirements for heating, cooling, comfort measures, the fine line between adequate care and neglect, the ways institutions could meet minimum legal standards while still making residents miserable. I was learning Victoria's own tricks, but from the other side. I excelled in my classes. I did internships at 5 different care facilities. I learned which ones had ongoing maintenance issues, which ones struggled with heating systems, which ones had just enough violations to be concerning, but not enough to lose their licenses. I documented everything, built relationships with administrators, became known as thorough, detail-oriented, professional. I also started therapy. Dr. Patricia Morrison was a trauma specialist who worked with abuse survivors. I started seeing her my sophomore year. "What you experienced was systematic psychological and physical abuse," she told me during our third session. "The fact that it didn't leave visible bruises doesn't make it less real." "But legally, it wasn't abuse, was it?" I asked. "The house had heat. I wasn't locked in a cage. I was just in another room. A room that was dangerously cold. But technically not illegal." Dr. Morrison studied me. "You're very focused on the legality." "I'm studying social work. Legal definitions matter. So does healing." I did heal, in my way. I learned to recognize the manipulation tactics, the gaslighting, the way Victoria would twist reality to make herself the victim. I learned that what happened to me wasn't my fault, that I deserved better, that resilience isn't built through suffering, it's built through support. But I also learned something else. I learned that the legal system has massive blind spots, that technically adequate can still be cruel, that there are ways to make someone suffer while maintaining perfect deniability. I learned everything Victoria had taught me, and I learned how to be even better at it than she was. I graduated summa cum laude at 22, got my MSW from Buffalo State, passed my licensing exam on the first try. By 24, I was working at Elder Care Solutions, the largest placement agency in Western New York. By 28, I was their lead geriatric care specialist, responsible for placing hundreds of elderly clients in appropriate facilities. I was good at my job, very good. I understood the systems. I knew every facility in the region, their strengths, their weaknesses, their ongoing issues. I could match clients to facilities with remarkable precision. "You have a gift for this," my supervisor told me during my annual review. "You really understand what each client needs." I smiled. Professional, competent. I just believe in appropriate placement. Marcus was proud. He'd become a successful ER physician at Buffalo General. He'd also gotten married to Amy, a nurse he met at work. They had 2 kids, Emma and Jacob, ages 6 and 4. The perfect nuclear family. He still loved Victoria. Still believed she was a flawed but well-meaning mother. He'd forgiven her for the porch phase, as he called it. "Mom was just old school," he said once, when the subject came up at Thanksgiving. "Strict but fair. She wanted us to be strong. She wanted Sarah to freeze," Lily said quietly. My little sister had grown into a sharp, observant woman. She was studying psychology at Cornell. She was the only one in the family who really understood what had happened. "That's a bit dramatic," Marcus said uncomfortably. "Is it?" Lily challenged. "You weren't there. You were always at work." "Mom had her reasons." "Abuse isn't reasonable," I interrupted calmly. "But it's in the past. I'm fine now." The conversation moved on. It always did. No one wanted to examine the truth too closely. It was easier to accept the narrative Victoria had created. Troubled middle child, stern but loving mother. Everyone doing their best. The years passed. I built my career, my reputation, my life. I dated occasionally, but never seriously. I had friends, but kept them at a distance. I had warmth and comfort and safety, but I couldn't fully enjoy any of it because part of me was still that 8-year-old girl shivering on a porch, watching her mother drink tea in the warm living room. Dr. Morrison said I needed to let go, to forgive, not for Victoria's sake, but for mine. "Holding on to this anger will only hurt you," she said during one of our sessions. "I'm not angry," I replied. "I'm just prepared." "Prepared for what?" I didn't answer. But I knew. Somewhere deep down, I knew that one day Victoria would need me. And when that day came, I would be ready. That day came on a Tuesday in February. I was 31 years old. Victoria was 68, still active, still sharp, still perfectly coiffed and professionally charming, still running her charity organizations and hosting her dinner parties. Marcus called me from the hospital, his voice tight with stress. "It's Mom. She fell, broke her hip. Is she okay?" "She will be. Surgery went well, but she'll need extensive rehabilitation. At least 2 months of physical therapy. She can't go home alone." "What about Dad?" Our father had divorced Victoria when I was in college. He'd moved to Florida and remarried. He sent cards at Christmas. He's not involved. It's on us. I see. Sarah, she's going to need placement. Somewhere good. I know this is your area of expertise, but I can't be objective about this. Can you handle it? I looked out my office window. Snow was falling, soft and silent. The temperature outside was 12 degrees. Of course, I said. I'll take care of everything. That night, I sat in my apartment. My warm, temperature-controlled apartment, with its modern heating system and insulated windows, and I reviewed facility options on my computer. Most places were full. It was February, prime time for hip fracture admissions. But I knew where to look. I knew which facilities had availability, and more importantly, why they had availability. Winter Haven Rehabilitation Center popped up on my screen. North Wing, 2 beds available. I'd visited Winter Haven many times for other clients. It was a decent facility overall. Good physical therapy department, competent staff, clean rooms. It met all state regulations. The North Wing had one persistent issue: the heating system. It had been malfunctioning for 9 months. The facility had filed for permits to repair it, but the permits were caught in bureaucratic delays. Meanwhile, temperatures in the North Wing hovered right at the legal minimum, 68 degrees Fahrenheit. Not dangerous, not illegal, but cold. Especially in the rooms with north-facing windows that never got direct sunlight. I'd placed clients there before. They all complained about the cold. They all asked to be moved. And I'd always accommodated them, finding warmer placements, because that was my job. Appropriate care based on client needs. But with Victoria, I could choose differently. I could place her in a facility that met every legal requirement while being profoundly uncomfortable. I could create a situation where she experienced exactly what she'd put me through: being cold, being told it was adequate, being trapped in a system that technically provided care while actually providing suffering. I could do to her exactly what she'd done to me, with perfect legal protection. I sat there for a long time, my finger hovering over the keyboard. Dr. Morrison's voice echoed in my head. Revenge won't heal the wound. It will only create new ones. But another voice was louder. My own voice, the voice of that 8-year-old girl. Someone has to stop her. Someone has to make her understand. I clicked on Winter Haven's information, read the reviews, confirmed the North Wing status, checked Victoria's insurance coverage. Everything aligned perfectly. I'm doing this for your own good, I whispered to the empty room, echoing Victoria's words back to her. Building character. I picked up my phone and called Winter Haven's director of admissions, Rebecca Walsh. We'd worked together on dozens of placements. Rebecca, hi, it's Sarah Richmond from Elder Care Solutions. I have a high-priority placement. My mother, actually. Hip fracture, post-op, needs immediate rehabilitation. Oh, Sarah, I'm so sorry. Of course, we'll take care of her. When do you need admission? As soon as possible. Do you have availability? We have 2 beds open, one in the West Wing. That's our premium section. Though I should mention it's $200 a day extra that most insurance doesn't cover. And the other option? North Wing. Standard rate, fully covered by Medicare and most supplemental insurance. I should mention, though, we're still waiting on permits for the heating system repair. It's perfectly safe and meets all regulations, but some patients find it a bit cool. My mother grew up in Buffalo, I said smoothly. She's always complaining that places are too warm. The North Wing might actually be perfect for her. There was a pause. Rebecca knew me well enough to know I was detail-oriented. She probably assumed I'd done my usual thorough assessment. All right then, North Wing it is. I'll have the paperwork ready. After I hung up, I sat very still. Part of me felt sick. Part of me felt justified. Part of me felt like I'd just crossed a line I could never uncross. But mostly, I felt cold. The same cold I'd felt every night for years. The cold that had seeped into my bones and never quite left, no matter how many warm apartments or heated cars or thermal blankets I had. Victoria had taught me that cold could be a weapon, wielded with precision and wrapped in justification. Now she was about to learn that lesson from the other side. The ambulance arrived at Buffalo General Hospital at 7 a.m. Thursday morning. I met them there, professional clipboard in hand, dressed in my business attire, navy suit, sensible shoes, hair pulled back in a neat bun. Every inch the competent social worker daughter. Victoria was awake, coherent, her hip wrapped and stabilized from the surgery 2 days prior. She looked smaller in the hospital bed than I remembered, more vulnerable. For just a moment, I felt a flicker of doubt. Then she saw me and smiled. That practiced, perfect smile she used for strangers and acquaintances. "Sarah, darling, how professional you look." "I'm here in my official capacity," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "I've arranged your placement at Winterhaven Rehabilitation Center. They have an excellent physical therapy program." "Winterhaven, I don't think I know it." "Say, it's on the north side of Buffalo. Family-owned, good reputation, fully licensed and accredited." Her eyes narrowed slightly. Victoria had always been able to sense subtext. "And you chose this facility specifically?" "It was the best option given your insurance coverage and immediate needs." "How thorough of you!" The transport took 30 minutes. Victoria spent most of it silent, studying me with that assessing gaze I knew so well. She was calculating, trying to figure out what I was planning. "You seem very calm about all this," she finally said as we pulled up to Winterhaven. "All what?" "Having to take care of your mother. Given our complicated history." I met her eyes. "I'm a professional. My personal feelings don't interfere with client care." "Client?" She smiled slightly. "Not mother. Right now, you're both." Winterhaven was a sprawling brick building, 3 wings extending from a central hub. The west wing faced south, catching afternoon light. The east wing faced west, getting sunset warmth. The north wing stretched out like an afterthought, windows facing the street where winter wind whipped between buildings, never getting direct sun. I'd studied the building orientation carefully. Rebecca Walsh met us at the entrance, all professional warmth and efficiency. "Mrs. Richmond, welcome to Winterhaven. We're going to take excellent care of you." "I'm sure you will," Victoria replied, that musical voice in place. "My daughter speaks very highly of your facility." We processed through intake. I'd filled out most of the paperwork in advance, making everything smooth and quick. Rebecca walked us through the common areas, the dining hall, the activity room, the physical therapy gym, all in the well-heated central building. "We have bingo on Tuesdays and Thursdays," Rebecca mentioned. "Very popular. I sometimes run the Thursday sessions myself." Victoria's eyes lit up. "I do enjoy bingo." Then we headed to the north wing. The temperature change was immediate, not dramatic. The facility was clever about that. But as we walked down the corridor, the air grew progressively cooler. Other residents wore cardigans. Some had blankets draped over their wheelchairs. "Here we are," Rebecca said, opening the door to room 142. "You're home for the next few months." The room was clean, properly equipped, everything up to code. The thermostat on the wall read exactly 68 degrees Fahrenheit. The north-facing window let in weak February light, but no warmth. Victoria's roommate, Maria Rodriguez, looked up from her knitting. She was bundled in a cardigan and lap blanket, despite being indoors. "Welcome," Maria said warmly. "I hope you brought warm pajamas. The heating in this wing has been temperamental." "How quaint," Victoria replied, her voice controlled. I busied myself unpacking her bag. I'd packed it myself. 3 thin nightgowns, 2 lightweight robes, her toiletries. The warm clothes were accidentally left at her house. I'd bring them next time. "I'll bring your winter things tomorrow," I said. "Of course you will," Victoria replied, her voice honey-sweet. Rebecca showed us around the room, explaining the call button system, the bathroom facilities, the daily schedule. "Physical therapy starts tomorrow at 9 a.m. The nurses will check on you every 2 hours. Is there anything else you need right now?" "I think we're all set," I said before Victoria could answer. After Rebecca left, I helped Victoria settle into the bed. The sheets were thin but met regulatory requirements. The blanket was adequate but not plush. Everything was exactly at the minimum standard. Maria had stepped out to use the bathroom. We were alone. "The north wing," Victoria said quietly. "The broken heating. The north-facing window. You really thought this through, didn't you?" "I chose the best available facility that met your medical needs and insurance coverage. You chose revenge. I chose appropriate care within system parameters." Victoria laughed, soft and almost admiring. I taught you well, didn't I? The same tricks I used. Technically adequate, legally defensible, morally questionable. I don't know what you mean. Oh, I think you do. She pulled the thin blanket up higher. The question is, do you think this will make you feel better? Will watching me shiver heal what I did to you? I gathered my papers. I'll be back tomorrow with those warm clothes. Will you? Her voice was challenging. Or will you forget, the same way you forgot to pack them today? I didn't answer. I left her sitting in that cold room, looking small and vulnerable, and I felt nothing. No triumph, no satisfaction, just an odd emptiness. In the parking lot, I sat in my car for a long time before starting the engine. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. How did the placement go? Smoothly, I typed back. She's at Winter Haven. Good physical therapy program. Never heard of it. Is it nice? It's appropriate. I drove home in silence, watching the snow fall on Buffalo's streets. The temperature was dropping. The forecast predicted a cold front moving in, 10 degrees for the next week. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Victoria in that cold room, about the thermostat reading exactly 68 degrees, about how she'd looked at me with that knowing, calculating expression, about how we were now playing the same game she'd taught me, just with reversed positions. Around 2 a.m., Dr. Morrison's words came back to me. Revenge won't heal the wound. It will only create new ones. I rolled over, pulled my warm comforter higher, and told myself I didn't care. The next morning, I arrived at Winter Haven with a small bag of clothes. Not the warm, comfortable ones from Victoria's closet. Not the fleece-lined robes or thermal underwear I knew she had. Instead, I'd stopped at Walmart and bought 2 cheap fleece bathrobes, the kind that looked warm but provided minimal actual insulation. The kind that would technically count as warm clothing, without actually making her comfortable. Victoria was in the dining hall, already talking with a table of 3 other residents. She'd only been there one day, but she was already working the room, building alliances, creating her narrative. She saw me and waved me over, that public-facing smile in place. Darling, come meet my new friends. I approached but stayed near the entrance. Just dropping off your things. I have to get to the office. She's a social worker, Victoria told her tablemates. Specializes in elder care. I'm so fortunate to have such a knowledgeable daughter. The manipulation was beginning. I recognized it. The public praise. The subtle positioning of herself as the grateful, fortunate one. Setting up the contrast for later, when she'd reveal how ungrateful and cold her daughter really was. Back in room 142, I hung the cheap robes in the narrow closet. The room felt colder than yesterday. The thermostat still read 68, but there was a draft from the old window. Maria was struggling with her sweater buttons. Your mother's quite the social butterfly, she said. Already making friends. She's always been good with people. My daughter keeps saying she'll bring me warmer clothes too, Maria added, a hint of sadness in her voice. But she's so busy with work. You know how it is. I did know. I knew exactly how Victoria would use this. Would compare herself to Maria's absent daughter. Would position me as the uncaring one by contrast. Victoria returned from breakfast 20 minutes later, moving carefully with her walker. The physical therapy would work quickly. She was in good shape for her age, motivated, determined. She'd be mobile soon enough. The robes are lovely, she said, examining the cheap fabric. So practical. I'll bring more clothes on Thursday. Thursday? But that's bingo day. Rebecca mentioned you sometimes stop by on Thursdays. The first move, plant the seed. Make it seem like I was avoiding her. My schedule is quite full, I said. Of course. You work so hard. She smiled. Rebecca was asking about you, actually. Wondering if you had other clients to place here. I told her you always research facilities thoroughly. The implication was clear. She was questioning how thoroughly I'd researched, planting doubt with the staff about my placement decision. I left without responding. In my car, I gripped the steering wheel and took several deep breaths. She was good, so good. Within 24 hours, she'd already begun her campaign. Over the next 2 days, I monitored Victoria's chart remotely. Physical therapy notes. Good progress, motivated patient. Nursing notes. Patient requested extra blanket. Request denied per facility regulation. Adequate bedding already provided. Thursday arrived cold and gray. I had 3 client visits scheduled, but I found myself driving past Winter Haven around 1:45 p.m., 15 minutes before bingo. The parking lot was fuller than usual. Bingo day attracted visitors. I sat in my car, engine running for heat, and watched residents make their way from various wings to the central activity room. Victoria appeared in the north wing doorway at 1:50. She was wearing both cheap fleece robes layered over her nightgown. The wind caught the fabric, and even from my car, I could see her struggle to maintain her grip on the walker. She paused halfway across the courtyard. Another resident approached her, elderly man with a cane. They talked for a minute. Then another resident joined them. By the time Victoria reached the main building, she'd stopped to talk to 6 different people. My phone rang. Dylan Chen's name on the screen. Dylan had been in my MSW program at Buffalo State. Now he worked for Adult Protective Services in Erie County. "Hey, Sarah, long time," he said. "Listen, this is awkward, but I got an anonymous call today. A complaint about a social worker possibly exhibiting caregiver burnout, making questionable placement decisions." My hand tightened on the phone. Anonymous? Yeah. Probably nothing. But the caller was very specific. Mentioned a recent placement at Winter Haven. Your name as the placing worker. The caller expressed concerns about potential elder neglect through environmental factors. Through the windshield, I watched Victoria disappear into the warm main building. I see. Look, I know you. You're one of the most ethical social workers I've ever met. But I have to follow up. Can we grab coffee tomorrow? Go over the placement documentation? Of course, I have nothing to hide. I figured. But you know how it is. Anonymous complaints require investigation, even when they're obviously false. We scheduled for 10 a.m. Friday. I sat in my cooling car. I'd turned off the engine without noticing, and felt something cold settle in my chest. Not the cold of temperature, the cold of realization. Victoria had just fired the first shot in what would be a long war. And unlike me, she had decades of experience in these battles. Friday morning arrived with frost coating my windshield. I scraped it methodically, preparing for my meeting with Dylan. The coffee shop on Elmwood Avenue was neutral territory, far from both Winter Haven and my office. Dylan was already there when I arrived. Laptop open, professional demeanor in place. We'd taken the same ethics courses, believed in the same principles of client advocacy. Now he sat across from me, investigating my decisions. "Thanks for meeting," he said, sliding a folder across the table. "Like I said, this is probably nothing, but I need to document the follow-up." I opened the folder. Standard APS intake form. The complaint was detailed, specific. Someone, Victoria, had done her homework. The caller mentioned you'd placed your mother at Winter Haven, specifically because of the heating issues in the North Wing, Dylan said carefully. They expressed concern about potential elder abuse through environmental neglect. I pulled out my own documentation, intake forms, medical assessments, facility comparison charts, everything prepared. Winter Haven was the only facility with available beds that met mother's insurance requirements and had the specialized equipment for her specific hip surgery recovery, I explained. You can see here. I pointed to the comparison chart. 3 other facilities had openings. One had recent bedbug citations. Another had medication error violations. The third didn't accept her insurance. Everything's documented. Dylan scanned the papers. The North Wing heating issue is mentioned in your notes. Full disclosure is essential, but as you can see, the facility maintains legal minimum temperatures. Mother has adequate bedding and clothing. The placement is entirely appropriate. What about other options? Were warmer placements available? I showed him my detailed analysis. Every alternative eliminated for legitimate reasons. Every decision justified with documentation dated before the placement. Perfect paper trail. Dylan made notes. Your mother hasn't filed any formal complaints with the facility. She's adjusting. Change is difficult at any age. Has she made other reports? Other concerns? So, I can't discuss specifics, Dylan said automatically. Then he sighed. Look, between us, this feels like family drama, not elder abuse. but I have to investigate fully. I'll need to visit the facility, interview staff, check conditions myself. Of course. Winter Haven welcomes oversight. Rebecca Walsh, the director, is very responsive. We finished our coffee. Dylan promised to keep me updated. I drove to work knowing Victoria's next move was already in motion. Sure enough, when I checked my email, Rebecca had sent a message. Your mother mentioned you might have other clients needing placement. I wanted to discuss our availability and perhaps address some concerns she raised about the heating situation. I called Rebecca immediately. What specific concerns did Mother mention? She's been documenting temperature readings, Rebecca said carefully. Taking photos of condensation on windows. She showed them to several other residents during bingo yesterday. I wanted to assure you we're addressing the heating repairs as quickly as possible. I have complete confidence in Winter Haven, I replied smoothly. Mother can be particular about her comfort. Has she been wearing the warm robes I brought? The nursing staff mentioned she often removes them, claiming they're too heavy for her arthritis. Perfect. Victoria was building her narrative while also undermining it, making herself look victimized while refusing solutions, just enough to maintain the drama without accepting help. I'll speak with her about cooperating with comfort measures, I said. That afternoon, I drove to Winter Haven. Victoria wasn't in her room. Maria was there, bundled in 2 sweaters. She's in the activity room, Maria said. Having tea with some ladies from the West Wing. They have better heating over there. I found Victoria holding court with 4 residents, her walker positioned strategically beside her chair. She'd styled her hair, applied makeup, playing the gracious victim. Darling, she exclaimed. What a lovely surprise. Ladies, this is my daughter, the social worker I was telling you about. The women smiled politely, but I caught the assessment in their eyes. Victoria had been planting seeds. Could we speak privately? I asked. Of course. She made a production of struggling with her walker, letting one of the women steady her. We found an empty corner in the hallway. Victoria's mask dropped immediately. Dylan Chen, she said simply. Such a nice young man, very concerned about elder welfare. Your anonymous report won't go anywhere, I said quietly. Everything is documented, every decision justified. Oh, I know. But it starts a paper trail, doesn't it? She smiled. And Marcus will be visiting tomorrow. I thought I'd show him my temperature documentation. Maybe mention how you insisted on this particular facility, despite other options. Marcus trusts my professional judgment. For now, but doubt is like cold air, Sarah. It finds the cracks and seeps in. A nurse approached. Mrs. Richmond, time for physical therapy. Victoria transformed instantly. Thank you, dear. My hip feels so stiff in this cold, but I'm trying my best. The nurse's expression softened. I know it's chilly in the North Wing. Maybe your daughter could bring warmer clothes? She's brought what she thinks is appropriate, Victoria said sweetly. I don't want to be a bother. I watched her shuffle away, playing up her frailty, the nurse walking slowly beside her, solicitous and concerned. That afternoon, I visited 3 other clients at different facilities. Each one warm, comfortable, appropriately placed. I documented everything, building my pattern of competent, ethical practice. Saturday brought Marcus's visit. I arrived early, bringing a small space heater I'd purchased. Safety approved, perfectly legal. This should help with any drafts, I told the head nurse. How thoughtful, she replied. Though we have to inspect any electrical devices first. Safety protocols. It might take a few days. I'd expected that. The heater would sit in the nursing station, while Victoria continued documenting the cold. Marcus arrived at 2 p.m., carrying flowers and a box of Victoria's favorite chocolates. I met him in the lobby. How's she doing? He asked. Adjusting. Recovery is on track. We walked to the North Wing together. Marcus noticed the temperature drop immediately. It is cold over here, he commented. Older building. They're working on repairs. Victoria was ready for us. She'd positioned herself by the window, where condensation had formed patterns on the glass. The room felt colder than usual. I suspected she'd opened the window earlier to make a point. Marcus! She reached for him, hands trembling slightly. How wonderful to see you! He hugged her carefully. You're freezing, Mom. It's not so bad, she said bravely. Your sister found me this facility. She says it's the best for my recovery. Marcus looked at me. I saw the first crack in his trust. The physical therapy program here is excellent, I said. Mother's making great progress. But couldn't she recover somewhere warmer? I don't want to complain. Victoria touched his hand. Your sister works so hard. She knows best. The martyrdom was perfectly calibrated. Marcus's frown deepened. I'll look into transfers, he said. There must be other options. Insurance is very specific about coverage, I countered. And moving her now could disrupt her recovery. Still, Mom shouldn't be cold. Victoria squeezed his hand. You're sweet to worry, but I've survived worse. Remember those winters when you children were young and the heating would break? I always made sure you kids were warm first. A lie wrapped in nostalgia. But Marcus's expression softened with false memory. You always took care of us, he said. I excused myself to check on another client. From the hallway, I could hear Victoria spinning her web. Stories about sacrifice, endurance, putting her children first, all fiction. When I returned, Marcus was taking photos of the condensation on the windows. For documentation, he said, not meeting my eyes. That night, I worked on my response to Dylan's investigation. Temperature logs from other facilities showing similar variations. Research on elderly patients who prefer cooler environments. A case that would satisfy any reasonable inquiry. Monday morning brought Victoria's escalation. The call came at 7 a.m. Mother had experienced a mild hypothermic episode during the night. Her core temperature had dropped to 96.2 degrees. Not dangerous, but concerning. She was being monitored in the medical wing. I arrived to find Marcus already there, still in his scrubs from his night shift. This is unacceptable, he said immediately. She could have died. Her temperature was never in the dangerous range, I said calmly. Elderly patients often have natural temperature variations. In a freezing room, the doctor on duty, Dr. Jennifer Winters, intervened. Mrs. Richmond's vitals are stable, but I'm concerned about environmental factors. She mentioned she's been cold since admission. We've provided adequate bedding and clothing, I said. Mother sometimes refuses to use them. I don't want to be difficult, Victoria said weakly from the bed. The robes are just so heavy with my arthritis. Dr. Winters made notes. I'll be recommending environmental modifications in my report. Warmer placement if possible. Marcus looked at me. We're moving her today. That's not how the system works. Then we'll make it work. I'll pay privately if insurance won't cover it. Victoria's eyes glinted with victory before fluttering closed in feigned exhaustion. I spent the morning calling facilities. Every option documented. Every rejection legitimate. Sunnyside Care, full. Harmony Haven, norovirus outbreak. Pleasant View, under investigation for Medicare fraud. The only available option is Meadowbrook Senior Living, I told Marcus that afternoon. They have excellent physical therapy, but what? Their heating system is also under repair. Different issue, but similar temperature concerns. Marcus's face darkened. You're telling me every warm facility is conveniently unavailable? I'm telling you the reality of elder care placement. Beds are limited. Good facilities have waiting lists. Then we'll wait. Mother needs continuous physical therapy for her hip. Interrupting treatment could cause permanent mobility issues. The trap was perfect. Marcus couldn't argue with medical necessity. Victoria was moved back to room 142 that evening, with extra blankets and promises about the space heater. She played the grateful patient, thanking everyone for their concern. Tuesday brought Rebecca to Victoria's room during my visit. Mrs. Richmond, I wanted to personally assure you we're expediting the heating repairs, she said. Your comfort is our priority. You're so kind, Victoria replied. I hope I haven't caused too much trouble. My daughter says I'm being difficult. I said no such thing, I interjected. Rebecca's smile was professional, but cool. We take all concerns seriously. I understand Mr. Chen from APS will be visiting tomorrow for his inspection. APS? Victoria's eyes widened innocently. Oh dear, I hope no one's in trouble. Just routine follow-up, I said smoothly. Nothing to worry about. After Rebecca left, Victoria and I sat in silence. You know, Victoria said finally, I've been thinking about those cold nights when you were young. How you'd huddle on that porch. Too proud to knock. Too well trained, I corrected. Perhaps, but pride nonetheless. You could have told Marcus, could have shown him the frostbite, but you protected me. I protected him from the truth about you. Victoria nodded slowly. And now, what are you protecting? Your professional reputation? Your career? Is that all? She pulled her thin blanket higher. Or are you protecting the story you've told yourself, that you're different from me? I stood to leave. I'm nothing like you. No? Victoria's smile was sharp. You found a vulnerable person, placed them in discomfort, used the system to justify it, maintained deniability. Tell me, darling, what's the difference? You had a choice. You chose cruelty. And what are you choosing now? I left without answering. That night, I couldn't sleep. Victoria's words circled like vultures in my mind. I made chamomile tea and reviewed my documentation again, but the words blurred together. Everything legal. Everything justified. Everything within the system's parameters. Just like her parenting had been, never crossing into obvious abuse, always maintaining plausible deniability, working within the rules to cause suffering. Wednesday morning, Dylan arrived at Winter Haven with a state inspector. I met them in the lobby, professional smile fixed. Thanks for facilitating this, Dylan said. We'll need to inspect the north wing, interview residents and staff. The inspection was thorough. The thermostat read 68 degrees, confirmed by Dylan's independent thermometer. They interviewed Maria first. It's chilly, she admitted, but manageable with layers. Other residents gave similar statements. Cool but legal. Uncomfortable but not dangerous. Then they reached Victoria. She was picture perfect. Thin nightgown, no robe, sitting by the drafty window with a book. Timing it precisely. Mrs. Richmond, Dylan introduced himself. I understand you have some concerns about the temperature. I don't want to complain, Victoria said softly. My daughter works so hard to find appropriate placements. I'm sure she did her best. The implied criticism was masterful. Are you cold now? Dylan asked. I've been colder. Truth wrapped in misdirection. I'm quite resilient. I had to be, raising my children, making sacrifices. The inspection continued. Dylan checked the closet, noting the 2 robes. You have warm clothing available? Yes, my daughter brought those. Victoria fingered the coarse material. They're a bit heavy for my arthritis, but I'm grateful for anything. When Dylan finished, he pulled me aside. The facility meets legal standards, but I have concerns about placement appropriateness given your mother's specific needs. What would you recommend? Document everything. Consider transfer when a warmer bed becomes available. And maybe, he hesitated, maybe examine your decision-making process. Caregiver burnout is real. It can affect judgment without us realizing. The suggestion stung because it was exactly what Victoria wanted him to think. Thursday arrived with bitter wind. The heating repair crew finally showed up, but Rebecca warned it would take at least a week to complete. We're offering temporary transfers to the West Wing for any residents who request it, she told me. Your mother declined. Of course she did. The West Wing would ruin her narrative. I found Victoria in the activity room, teaching a group how to knit. Her arthritis miraculously manageable when it suited her purposes. Muscle memory, she explained to her audience. Even when your joints ache, your hands remember, like riding a bicycle or raising children. The women murmured sympathetically. Several glanced at me with poorly concealed judgment. After the activity, Victoria cornered me. Marcus has been researching facilities on his own. He found one with an opening next week. Meadowbrook Senior Living. Excellent heating, he says. I knew Meadowbrook. Excellent heating, yes. Also a history of over-medicating residents, minimal activities, and food quality that was barely edible. I'll review it, I said neutrally. He's already started the paperwork. Says he doesn't trust your judgment anymore. Victoria's voice held no triumph. Just fact. My poor boy. He feels so guilty for not noticing sooner. Not noticing your manipulation. Not noticing your pain, she corrected. He thinks he failed you. Now he thinks you're failing me. Paul wants to save someone. Since he couldn't save you, he'll save me now. Friday brought the confrontation. Marcus arrived at my office unannounced, Meadowbrook's brochure in hand. We need to talk, he said, closing the door. I gestured to a chair. About Mother? About you. He sat forward. Dylan Chen called me. Professionally, he can't share details, but he suggested I might want to be more involved in Mom's care decisions. I see. Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you deliberately placed our mother in the coldest facility you could find. The north wing, the broken heating, the north-facing windows. Come on, Sarah. You're too good at your job for this to be coincidence. I stayed silent. I get it, Marcus continued, voice cracking. I do. Mom was hard on you. The porch thing. I should have known. Should have stopped it. You were working. You couldn't have known. But I should have. And now you're what? Getting revenge? Making her suffer? I'm providing appropriate care within system parameters. Stop! His voice was sharp. Stop hiding behind bureaucracy. This isn't about systems or parameters. This is about you and Mom, and whatever happened when I wasn't there to protect you. You can't protect everyone, Marcus. But I can protect her from you. From whatever this is. He stood. I'm moving her to Meadowbrook Tuesday. I'll pay the difference myself. Meadowbrook has serious quality concerns. It's warm, he cut me off. That's all that matters right now. She'll be warm. He left before I could respond. That weekend, I visited Mrs. Chen. She still lived next door to our childhood home, now in her 80s, but sharp as ever. I wondered when you'd come, she said, pouring tea with steady hands. Your mother called last week from some facility. Said you'd put her there. Rehabilitation center for her hip. Mrs. Chen studied me. She sounded cold. I said nothing. You know, I always wondered why you spent so much time by my radiator those winter nights. Your mother said you were rebellious, sneaking out. But you were sneaking in, weren't you? Into warmth. She told you I was rebellious? Oh, yes. Said you refused to sleep in your bed. Preferred the porch. Children and their phases, she'd say. Mrs. Chen sipped her tea. I wanted to call someone, but who, and say what? The child prefers sleeping outside? They'd have laughed. She was good at that, I said, making it seem like my choice. Yes. Mrs. Chen set down her cup. So now you make choices for her. I found her appropriate care. In a cold place. Within legal parameters. Mrs. Chen smiled sadly. Your mother used to say that too. About the porch. Technically, you had shelter. Technically, you weren't in danger. Technically, she wasn't doing anything wrong. The parallel hit me like ice water. It's not the same, I protested. No. Mrs. Chen reached across the table, patted my hand. You found a vulnerable person. Placed them somewhere cold. Used technicalities to justify it. She paused. I understand the impulse, dear. But understanding isn't endorsement. Tuesday came too quickly. I arrived at Winter Haven to help with the transfer, but Marcus had come early. Victoria was already in the transport van. We've got it handled, he said coolly. Through the van window, Victoria watched us. No triumph in her expression, just assessment, calculation. The van pulled away. I stood in the parking lot watching it disappear. The north wing behind me was warm now. The repairs had been completed that morning. Too late for Victoria, but perhaps in time for the next resident. I drove straight to Meadowbrook. The facility sat on a busy commercial strip, sandwiched between a tire shop and a payday loan office. Inside, the heat hit like a wall. The thermostat in the lobby read 82 degrees. Several residents dozed in wheelchairs, faces flushed from the warmth. The air smelled like overcooked vegetables and industrial disinfectant. Room 203 was small, cramped, separated from her roommate by a stained curtain. The roommate was heavily sedated, drooling slightly in her sleep. Marcus arrived with Victoria 20 minutes later. She took in every detail, her expression neutral but calculating. It's certainly warm, she said mildly. Over the next week, I watched from a distance. Meadowbrook's staff was overwhelmed, understaffed. The food was barely edible. Victoria's medication list grew. Ativan, Seroquel, Trazodone. The chemical restraint cocktail. By Friday, Victoria was glazed, sluggish, slumped in a wheelchair among the other sedated residents. How are you feeling? I asked during a visit. Tired, she said slowly. So tired, but warm, very warm. I checked her medication chart when the staff was distracted. All at maximum doses. That weekend, I compiled research on Meadowbrook's medication practices. 3 lawsuits in the past 2 years. Families claiming loved ones were over-medicated into compliance. All settled quietly. I texted the information to Marcus. He didn't respond. 2 weeks later, Marcus called. Mom's miserable. I'm miserable. The place is awful, but I can't admit I made a mistake because that would mean you were right. What do you want me to do? Fix it. Find her somewhere better. Winter Haven has an opening. The heating's fixed. Full circle, he laughed bitterly. It's a good facility, Marcus. And Mom? Would she be happy? She'd be appropriately cared for. Long pause. You knew this would happen. Knew Meadowbrook was terrible. Let me learn the hard way. You wouldn't have believed me otherwise. Just like Mom knew you'd eventually rebel against the cold, but let you suffer first. He sighed. God, we're a messed up family. Monday, I filed the transfer paperwork. Winter Haven to Meadowbrook, back to Winter Haven. Full circle. Wednesday was moving day. Victoria packed without complaint. The Meadowbrook staff seemed relieved to see her go. At Winter Haven, Maria greeted Victoria warmly. I saved your spot by the window. The afternoon sun is delightful now that the heating works properly. Victoria settled into her old bed. Warm room, chatty roommate, everything fixed. Thank you, darling, she told me, for everything. Just doing my job. Of course. She arranged things on her nightstand. Will you visit? Thursdays during my rounds. Professional visits only? What else would they be? She nodded slowly. What else indeed? In the parking lot, Marcus stopped me. Is this what winning looks like? Because it doesn't feel like anyone won. It's what appropriate care looks like. Cold comfort. Better than false warmth. I drove home in silence. That night, I called Dr. Morrison and made an emergency appointment. I became her, I told Dr. Morrison the next day. I did exactly what she did. Found someone vulnerable, made them suffer while maintaining perfect deniability. I told myself it was different because she deserved it, because I was just giving her what she gave me. But Mrs. Chen was right. It's the same pattern. And how does that realization make you feel? Sick, ashamed, and still angry. Because she did do those things to me. She did make me suffer, and she never apologized, never acknowledged it, never showed any remorse. So part of me still thinks she deserved what I did. Can two things be true at once? Dr. Morrison asked gently. Can your mother have caused you real harm that deserves acknowledgement? And can your response also have been harmful and unjustified? I sat with that question for a long moment, where I wanted her to understand. I said finally, to feel what I felt, to know what it was like to be cold and helpless and trapped. But she already knew, didn't she? That's why she did it to me in the first place. She knew exactly what that suffering felt like, and she inflicted it anyway. So what did you achieve by doing the same? Nothing, except proving I could be just as cruel. Not quite the same, Dr. Morrison said. You recognized what you were doing. You're here, acknowledging it, feeling remorse. That's different from your mother's pattern. Is it enough? That's up to you to decide. Friday afternoon, I returned to Winter Haven. Not for a professional visit, just a visit. Victoria was in the activity room, recovered from her Meadowbrook ordeal, back to her sharp, calculating self. She saw me and raised an eyebrow. 2 visits in 1 week? How unexpected. I sat across from her. We need to talk. About? About what you did to me, and about what I did to you. Victoria's expression flickered. For just a moment, the mask dropped. I was cold, I continued. For years. Not just physically, though that was bad enough. I was cold inside, frozen, unable to trust, unable to feel safe, unable to believe that anyone would ever put my needs first. You did that, and it was wrong. She said nothing. But what I did was also wrong, I continued. I became exactly what I hated. I used my position, my knowledge of the system, to make you suffer. I justified it the same way you justified what you did to me. Technically adequate, legally defensible, wrapped in the language of appropriate care. But it was revenge, pure and simple. Victoria's hands trembled slightly. Why are you telling me this? Because one of us has to break the pattern. One of us has to stop pretending that cruelty dressed up as character building is anything other than cruelty. And you think an apology will fix everything? Her voice was brittle. Make the past disappear? No, but it's a start. We sat in silence. Other residents moved around us, playing cards, watching TV, living their lives. Normal lives where children didn't freeze on porches and mothers didn't end up in cold nursing homes as punishment. You want me to apologize, Victoria said finally. To say I was wrong, that I damaged you. I want you to tell the truth. Another long silence. I was angry, she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. When you were born. Marcus was easy. Lily was the daughter I'd dreamed of. But you, she paused. You were stubborn, strong-willed. You reminded me of myself at that age. And I hated myself. So you punished me for it. Ah, I thought I was making you stronger. The world is hard, especially for women, especially for girls who don't fit the mold. I thought if I toughened you up, you'd survive anything. You nearly broke me. I know. Her voice cracked. I see that now. But I didn't then. I told myself I was helping, that you needed it, that it was for your own good. It wasn't. No. A single tear rolled down her cheek. It wasn't. I felt something shift in my chest. Not forgiveness. I wasn't ready for that. But something like release. I'm sorry, Victoria said. For all of it. For the cold. For making you feel unwanted. For damaging you in ways I'm only beginning to understand. I was wrong. Thank you, I said. And I'm sorry too. For Winter Haven. For the North Wing. For letting my anger turn me into the same thing I hated. We sat together in the warm activity room. Two women who'd hurt each other, both trying to figure out how to stop the cycle. What happens now? Victoria asked. I don't know. Therapy, probably. For both of us. Honestly about what happened. Maybe, eventually, some kind of relationship that isn't built on pretending the past didn't exist. That sounds hard. It is. But it's better than the alternative. Victoria nodded slowly. The alternative being? Continuing this forever. You hurt me. I hurt you. Neither of us ever admitting the truth or breaking the pattern. Eventually destroying any possibility of connection. I'd like to avoid that, she said softly. Me too. I stood to leave. At the door, I turned back. I'll see you next Thursday, not as a client, as your daughter. I'd like that. Driving home, I felt lighter somehow. Not healed. Healing would take years, but moving in the right direction. I called Marcus that evening. Mom and I talked, I told him. Really talked. About everything, the past, what I did, what she did. It's not fixed, but it's a start. What changed? I stopped hiding behind systems and regulations, and she stopped hiding behind justifications and denial. We both finally told the truth. And it turned out the truth was the only thing that could break the cycle. I'm glad, Marcus said, and I could hear the relief in his voice. I've felt so caught in the middle. You don't have to be. This is between Mom and me. You can just be her son and my brother. That sounds good. That night, I wrote in my journal. Something Dr. Morrison had suggested years ago, but I'd never consistently done. I wrote about the porch, about Winter Haven, about the moment when I realized I'd become what I hated, about Mrs. Chen's words, about truth and healing and the long road ahead. I wrote, revenge doesn't heal trauma. It just creates new trauma. Real healing comes from breaking the pattern, not perpetuating it. From choosing compassion over cruelty, truth over justification, connection over isolation. I wrote, my mother hurt me. I hurt her back. Neither action was justified. Both actions were wrong. The only way forward is to acknowledge both truths and choose differently going forward. I wrote, cold can be a weapon, but warmth, real warmth, emotional warmth, the warmth of honest connection, can be healing. That's the warmth I want to create, not the cold I experienced. 6 months later, Victoria completed her rehabilitation at Winter Haven. Her hip had healed well. She was ready to go home. Marcus and I helped her pack. The three of us worked together, sorting through her things, making plans for in-home care, discussing physical therapy schedules. Sarah, Victoria said as we loaded the car, would you come over for dinner next week? I want to try to rebuild, if you're willing. I looked at her. Really looked at her. She was smaller than I remembered. older, more vulnerable, but also more honest. The mask was gone, replaced by something real. "I'd like that," I said, "but I have some conditions." "Of course." We keep being honest. No pretending the past didn't happen. No going back to the old patterns. If one of us starts falling into old behaviors, the other calls it out immediately. "Agreed," she said. "Anything else?" "The house needs to be warm, properly heated. No cold rooms, no porch sleeping, ever." She smiled. A real smile this time, not the practiced one. The heating system was upgraded while I was away. The whole house stays at 72 degrees now. I couldn't stand being cold after Meadowbrook. Funny how that works. Funny, I agreed. We drove her home, helped her settle in, made sure everything was set up safely. As I was leaving, Victoria touched my arm. "Thank you," she said, "for stopping the cycle, for being braver than I was." "We stopped it together," I replied. "That's the only way it works." On the drive home, I called Dr. Morrison. "I think I'm ready to move forward," I told her. "Not to forget what happened, but to build something new. Something that isn't defined by cold and revenge and cycles of hurt." "What does that look like to you?" "I don't know yet. But it's warm, and it's honest, and it's different from what came before. That's enough for now." And it was.